Hey guys, so I had a subscriber write to me and ask me my opinion on a few different topics, and I am all too happy to share my opinion, so here goes with one of his questions. The question was, why does it seem like history keeps repeating itself? With all of the wars and conflicts and protests, you would think humanity has been able to evolve out of it by this point. And the short answer would be, the reason we have not been able to stop recreating history is because we have not learned how to transcend into a different program of existence. So we need to remember that we are on a third density based reality, which is duality. We have opposing forces, and in those two opposing forces of the spectrum, we're supposed to find our way through all this junk and polarize to either the positive or negative polarization. That's where we're at. So until we can polarize, we've got a lot of this conflict going on. Now, that being said, we're also raised in the duality. So the energy that we're bathing in our whole existence in physical form is negativity. On top of the fact that our caregivers who raised us would have been bathing in the same energies, and those caregivers who raised those caregivers would have been bathing in the same energies, and those caregivers and those all the way back. So we're all being raised by individuals who are of a negative polarity just because we have not learned how to transcend the duality-based reality by default, which is why we're still here. Okay? All right, so that being said, we're conditioned by conflict. Think about it. The mentality in our cultures tend to be fight for what's right, stand your ground, don't back down. And those are all in opposition because, again, we are on a duality-based realm. So for those who understand that history is repeating itself, we're still participating in it because we're actually fighting what is rather than pulling our energy out of what is and creating something different. And everyone knows that whatever you resist persists. So the fact that we're fighting the rulers, or we're fighting the laws, or we're fighting the ones who are unawakened, or we're fighting the ignorance, or we're fighting the poverty, or we're fighting the drugs, we're actually giving energy to the problems that we're trying to get rid of. Okay, so my point is we're all too engaged in the world that we see out there. We're not nearly as engaged as the worlds that we're creating in here. And this is where we have to get to change the program that we're operating on so that history stops repeating itself. Right? So we're going to go down the rabbit hole just a little bit, and I realize that every time you even start to go down the rabbit hole, you risk sounding just a little bit crazy. Nonetheless, I'm going to take that chance. We are under a negative influence. So regardless of what level of consciousness your soul was at before it incarnated into human form, while you're in human form, you're subject to a negative influence. Now, the ancient texts refer to these negative influences as Archons, and Archons are just another word for deceivers. And you have master deceivers who are very, very good and very, very sneaky. You don't even realize that you're being deceived because they're that good. Now, what's interesting about the Archons is that they're said to be the natural adversary of humanity. Not of the soul, but of the human. They're also said to be a mind virus. Now, I find that kind of intriguing because a mind virus, well, our brains are the computer that run the body, and we are not the body or the brain. We're the consciousness that works behind the two. So a mind virus, is it that our mind, the computer, has a computer virus? Is that innate to the program? Maybe the Archons are the human ego, and the ego is the program that we are operating in when we incarnate, because the ego is what gives us the illusion of separation. Perhaps. But the Archons are said to be of the negative polarity. Again, maybe that's our ego. Or maybe it's just some entity out there. Or maybe it's something else. But they're of a negative polarity. So they're not evil per se, but they do exist in the negative polarity realm. So conflict, war, oppression, anxiety, grief, despair, disgust, any of those lower frequency emotions are going to be there loving it kind of vibe. What Archons don't like is love. Okay, so if they're of a negative polarity and they are a human's natural adversary, it stands to reason that anytime you're trying to be a better person, either through personal growth or through moving into the greater good and being of service to the greater good, you're going to be under psychic attack 24/7 by these archons, by these mind viruses that are trying to keep you in the lower vibration, the negative polarity, because that's where they get their fuel from. Every time you experience those negative emotions, you're feeding it. So if you want to stop feeding it, do you fight it? No, because now you're fighting. It's still getting what it wants. You're still fighting. Fighting is opposition. Fighting is conflict. Fighting is negative polarity. So they're still winning. Even when you try to fight them, they're still winning. This is why all of the great teachers talked so extensively about love. Above all, love. Learn to love. Learn to forgive. Love, 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 love. Because love is not in resonance with conflict. They don't match. So it is said that the archons only have the power that they have because we feed them. We are constantly giving them energy. If we completely just shut them out and just move over to a new way of thinking, they would die out on their own. Now, isn't that interesting? In order to break our patterns of history, we have to do something drastically different. Now, this is common sense, and yet we keep falling into the same patterns because the negative influence is trying to help us stay in that pattern. It's a real challenge. But you recognize that if you keep trying to fight what is, you're no different than fighting the fight that was fought before you. You're still fighting. You have to transcend the need for conflict, and the only way to do that is to start within. Don't worry about the worlds out there. Focus on the worlds in here. And it can't be faking it. You can't just fake a nice guy. You got to genuinely become that vibration. You have to move to the love vibration. You have to polarize to the positive polarity, not the negative polarity. Which means that you have to start learning and implementing, really truly integrating these spiritual principles, living your life by it, learning to pause before you react to something, learning to reflect on something afterward to get a grander perspective. You have to move into that. It starts with that, the genuine regard of another as sacred, whatever that other is. Some time ago, I had a meditation where I was walking above the planet on a clear glass floor, and below me I could see Earth and all of the shadows and the gray and the black, and there was only a few pockets of light. And in this death and decaying planet, I could hear the wails of the people on the planet crying out for help, crying out for someone to come and save them. And my heart was just breaking. And I became aware of this presence next to me, this feminine, misty white, formless being that was walking next to me, that I took as the Divine Sophia, as wisdom. And I said to her, what do I do? This is horrible. Look what we have done to this planet and all of this life and all of this suffering. How can I do anything? I am just one person. This is so hopeless. I don't even know what to do. And she motioned her arm over to this little teeny tiny green postage size stamp on the planet, my stamp, where I was, and said, all you have to do is take care of that. And I disputed with her. I said, what do you mean? How can you tell me that with all of this suffering, all of this toxic waste that is happening on this planet, you're telling me to ignore that and just focus on my little area? Don't worry about the rest? How can I stand in good faith as a spiritual teacher and tell people to ignore the problems and just focus on what's important to you? And she said, your ripple effect is far greater than you realize. And everyone who is on your path is there for a reason. And if you can come to a genuine regard of everything that you see as being sacred, as being important, then your little area would light up even brighter. And if everyone on the planet did the same thing, regarded what was in their reality as sacred, as important, every person, every animal, every plant, every insect, everything, then the world would shine with this new level of consciousness. And she moved her other arm over the globe, and the whole world lit up this beautiful golden light. And I got it. See, it's not about making anybody else change their ways. It's about you changing yours. And when enough of us do that, we can write a different future. One that we are learning from our history and not repeating it. And maybe there will always be those who want to repeat it, because maybe the ego, the archons, they're fun for a time. And maybe there's going to be some kind of crazy quantum split. One group of humans is going to go this way, one group of humans is going to go that way. I don't know what this whole thing is about. But I do know that it has to start with each one of us. Not by implementing our beliefs on others, integrating the beliefs in ourselves, and actually practicing what we preach. Be the change we wish to see in the world. That is how real change is going to happen, and that is how we stop repeating history. So, I hope that was clear enough for you, and that it was beneficial in some way. And if it resonated with you, awesome. Feel free to like and share this video. And if you feel so compelled, check out my books on Amazon.com. And in the meantime, guys, good luck on your journey. Namaste.